All right, thank you for staying with Citizen TV's Kenya's Choice coverage here. Let me introduce my guest real quick. Franklin Mkwanja is here, Executive Director, Center for Multi-Party Democracy. Asante sana for making time. Joy Mudivo is also here, Advocate of the High Court. Thank you so much for making time. And Herman Manyora, political commentator. Asante sana for making time. Before we get into the gist of it all, let's take a look at the dailies and see what's going on there. Front page of the Standard, why I reject route of victory, and front page of the Daily Nation, Raila rejects tally. Before we even get into the details, Franklin, let's start with you. We were with you before the election was done, dusted, and called. Now that it has been declared, what is your general assessment of how the IEBC performed, first of all, before we get into the issues here?
I think in terms of the operational efficiency, the IEBC looked to have put up a good case. The build-up, of course, pre-election was challenging, from financing to composition of the commission to, hiring of senior executives within the secretariat. And up to now, the legislations that were supposed to improve the electoral environment were not put in place. There are questions around procurement of technology and the training and the use of it and the deployment, and all those were challenges. But on the D-Day, I think the most significant things, as we observed as observers, was the challenges of the capacity of election officials to use the gadgets, and therefore delayed a lot of polling stations in terms of opening. We also witnessed long queues and challenges here and there, but those were overcome, and we saw decisions being made in good time and elections proceeding. But come to the tail end of it, the tallying, as expected, was less than impressive. Now, in the build-up again, we saw critical leakages of information happening from the commission, and there was a bit of saying we are together as commissioners, we're working and reading from the same script. In reality, it wasn't, as we've seen the four commissioners splintering to say something else. It also seems that the chairman had issues in terms of consultations and such. So the challenges that we see then can only automatically, and we have to give congratulations to Honorable Raila Odinga that he's a stickler to the rule of law, and he's determined that we go to the Supreme Court. The issues that are outstanding then can be determined by the court. Yeah. We have facts, we have the law, we have banging of the tables. Now we are into mathematics. Let the Supreme Court determine that, and we can move on. I am happy with the way various institutions have acted. The security apparatus, I think they have acted to a level of neutrality, a level of professionalism, and a lot of restraint. We have not had a lot of provocation or abetting of incidences that would lead to violent incidences. We have also observed Kenyans acting in a much mature democratic manner. There was sporadic incidents of violence on the night of announcement. It has since subsided. Kenyans are slowly coming back to work. The reaction seems, I think, more mature than we've had before. Yes, the winners are magnanimous, but we're also asking them to treat the losers for now with dignity, so that we can have everyone feeling Kenyan. And of course, those that will ascend to office must then be able to do the hard work.
Yeah, now that we are into mathematics, what percentage would you give IEBC in terms of performance out of 100%?
I think I would give IEBC 4.5%. Yes.
Or 40.5%?
Just below the average.
Below average?
Yeah.
Okay. Joy, what is your assessment of IEBC, how they've performed through this entire election, up until the time they called it?
If I base it solely on, no, let me not base it solely on anything. Let me look at it in the global sense. I think I would give the IEBC a 70% in terms of how they've handled things. And the 30% that I'm taking away is primarily on how they've handled the circus around the election itself. So majority of what I found questionable with what the IEBC did. There was an explanation as to how we got there. So, for example, just as Franklin has correctly pointed out, prior to IEBC starting the process of this election, they faced hurdles that were placed before them by a crisis not of their making. So, for example, when the commission was recruited, they came in at a point when another commissioner just exited, and they had in very short order had to deliver an election, which of course turned out to be a big bungle. So already they had a background of being a failed commission. Then a little bit into the life of that commission, they were crippled by numbers. When one commissioner decided to resign during the election cycle, then another 3 resigned shortly after the election cycle was done. So for the longest time, they were operating in this state of limbo. Are we in existence? Are we not in existence? Are we well constituted or not? And this question even had to go all the way to litigation. And eventually the court said, you know what, even if you're the 3 of you, the Constitution says at least commissioners are not more than 9, so you guys are fine. You're within the constitutional limits, so fine. Then we had questions about replacing those who had left, Akina Chiloba and the others. Again, not of their making, but this impeded their progress. Then we came to the fights in Parliament. They needed budget, they're not getting budget. At the end of the day, by the time they were actually getting down to the business of starting to organize the election, they're already starting on the back foot. So that tells me, okay, therefore, that a lot of what they had to do, their timelines were either too short, too tight. Everything was hairpin turn. There was nothing that was a smooth sail for them. Then to make matters worse, just when you're starting to get into the election cycle, you get 4 new commissioners. So you're dealing with the same problem that they're dealing with last time. You have a bunch of newbies expected to deliver a huge task in short order. Not just that, we kept throwing everything at them. It was like they're running this race, and we decided it's becoming an obstacle race. Civil society, the politicians, the political parties, everybody had a case or something. Every day they were responding to something. So by the time we're getting to the election, we were fed up with how little information we had. Nobody was sure as to whether the level of preparedness was enough. So by the time we got to the election, I was pleasantly surprised at how much smoother things went than I had anticipated. So that's why I give them a fairly decent grade, because I'm like, you know what? With what they were dealing with, I expected a lot worse. Yeah. But with what I witnessed and what I experienced, I think they did a fairly decent job.
All right. Prof, how would you rate IBC's performance?
You know, I'm a teacher.
Yeah.
And I had actually expressed my surprise at how well IBC had worked up to Bomas, the first 1 or 2 days in Bomas. I'm talking up to around Wednesday, Thursday. But I've since retrieved the paper, and I wish to remark it. You know, I liken the process of election in this country to a plane on autopilot, where the pilot and his co-pilot, they can just sleep. There's nothing they are doing. But now, the test of their skill, and the only task they have is to land the plane. When it's now landing, say you are now removing from autopilot, you must land it or kill the passengers. IBC has killed the passengers. Landing the plane means that final stage that has eluded us for all this long. Our elections have not had a problem from the time of Chesoni, improved on by Kivuitu, later Isaac Hassan, yes, and now Chebukati. We've never had a problem, serious problems, with the actual processes in terms of, even when observers come to this country, they can't believe what they are seeing. Wonderful. Things working clockwise. But the final delivery, to land the plane down and the passengers to disembark safely and go hug their loved one, we have missed it. Chebukati has again missed it. And I must warn people like Chebukati and people who are playing with this country, this is dangerous. To destroy a country is very easy. To rebuild a country is a very difficult thing. We see all around us. I remember meeting Siadi Bare at Safari Park, I think somewhere like that, around 1990. How many years are those? My friend, Somalis have not rebuilt their country. It's not easy to rebuild a country. Never play with an election. So everything was going well, clockwise, until the way the final thing is delivered to Kenyans.
Yeah.
It's not clear, it's opaque. With all the shenanigans, with 4 commissioners bolting out of Bomas, you know, that is not good for the country.
Ideally, how should it have been handled?
Pardon?
How do you think Chebukati should have handled it? Now that there are 4 commissioners presenting and Chebukati
I had done
all to call the election.
I had spoken to many media houses, international and local, and I was giving them tick, tick, tick. Now, let's go to the tail end. We don't know what happened, but let's go by what we do know. That before the final announcement, the agents, especially the chief agent for Honorable Raila Odinga, cried foul. What did he say? That the thing was so opaque. They are being asked to invite Raila to come. They are being asked to accept results that they have no idea how it has been arrived at. You would expect the agents will be shown, this is our tabulations, you are seeing it going down there and how it is, now you can sign here. That bit was kept opaque. And we learned later that the Chebukati had avoided his fellow commissioners and these agents. Well, fine, that could be normal, okay, because of the heat of the moment. But what happens when the 4 commissioners bolt? Why was Chebukati in a hurry to announce, and he still had 1 more day? To earn the confidence of Kenyans, Chebukati would have called for a meeting early Tuesday morning, the following day, with all the commissioners. So that even if they, for some reason, let me say almost stubbornly, refuse to see the figures, maybe they have a paymaster, Chebukati don't tell them, in the interest of this election and in the interest of the country, I have tried to talk to you, I've shown you the figures, here they are, you have refused, I'm even inviting the press into this meeting. And this is what we have seen, and this is what I'm going to invite. That would, to announce, that would have earned the confidence of Kenyans. But as it were, the speed, the hurry, the timing is almost evening. They say they'll never do it at night, reminding Kenyans of Kibaki's 2007. That was reckless and I dare say dangerous. Yeah. And it shouldn't be repeated in future.
Joy, do you think there's a hurry in pronouncement of this election results? This is the longest we've waited for a presidential election result to be announced.
Exactly, hence my furrowed brow, because I'm listening to Dr. and I'm not sure we were observing the same set of circumstances. Even on the day of the announcement itself, the guests were seated in Bomas as early as 10 a.m. Communication came out that the announcement will be done at 3 p.m. It was not made until after 5 p.m. That tells me, because even I was in Bomas on that day, we had no idea what was going on. That tells me there must have been some discussions and a stalemate somewhere for it to have gotten to the place that it got. And so what Dr. is suggesting must have been happening behind the scenes. We just didn't get to see it. Postponing it to Tuesday now would have gotten us in a situation where we would be likely to precipitate a constitutional crisis, because he only has 7 days within which to declare this election. In my opinion, one of the things that Kenyans have to remember is that as the chairman of the IEBC, it is the responsibility of the chairman to be the returning officer of the presidential vote. It is not a board commission meeting. It's not a decision on who to award a contract or who to recruit as chairman or as CEO or as director of ICT. That was not that sort of meeting. This was a meeting where the sole responsibility of the commission was to look at the Form 34As that communicated what Kenyans said when they were asked the question, who do you want to be your president? Once they read those things and verified them according to the law, because it was in the Mainakia case about verification, but the law was actually changed this year in the election rules that were, the election laws that were changed by Parliament just before. And in the word verify was included in there. So Chebukati had to be satisfied that the Form 34As have come and that they've been verified. Once they've been verified, that they have been tallied. This tallying is not Chebukati sitting with a calculator and doing the math. There's the way it has been computed that it adds itself up. That is why you had ELOC doing a similar tally. That is why you had other observers. That's why you had normal Kenyans, people like Akina Mongo Capital, doing the math and arriving at approximately the same figures. So when the commissioners are behaving as if they were taken by surprise that there were figures at the end of the day, yet they were participating all along. We saw Commissioner Wanderi, we saw Commissioner Cherera, we saw all of them taking turns, coming out and reading some results to us. So behaving as if they had no clue what was going on until last minute, alama ya dukuduku, to me is less than honest, because they were there in Bomas, day and night, because that verification was going on during the day, through the night, during the day, through the night, for 5 continuous days. So for them to behave as if they were taken by surprise by the turn of events, by where did these numbers come from, doesn't make sense. And for us to be able to even lend credence to the fact that there was the so-called opaqueness, okay, fine. So in your tally, in your total, okay, then what did you find was the case? What did you tell Chebukati? I don't think it's 15, I think it's 13, and this is how I arrived at 13. Did you have that conversation? Or the conversation was just that, no, before you announce, talk to us about it first, because there's nothing that obliges the rest of the commission to make that announcement. But for Chebukati, he has a personal responsibility. Remember, even for the other returning officers, their actions as returning officers gives them, it's a personal responsibility. If they make an error, if they make a mistake, if they take a bribe and make a wrong presumption, there's no protection given to other civil servants that in the course of doing your duty, they're personally liable. And the same liability attaches to Chebukati. So when I look at this incident, all I see is people who maybe had a predetermined outcome, who maybe wanted to have an influence, failed to have that influence, but had to make a justification for whatever action that is. And I'm very, very proud of Honorable Raila, because he said, you know what, if this thing is not making sense, the court will nullify it, because that's the way to go. It's not to walk out of your duty station and to go ahead and throw a hissy fit. That doesn't make any sense. Bandy around figures that are obviously not internalized. So it makes us wonder, are you saying your own words or are you being told what to say? Because at the end of the day, I agree 100% with what Dr. is saying here. That action alone could burn the country. That action of going to Serena was irresponsible. There was nothing that stopped them, even if they were in Bomas, to issue a dissent. We've seen it in the Court of Appeal, in the Supreme Court. They had that leeway. So what I saw happening with those 4 commissioners, as far as I'm concerned, was not only irresponsible, it was unpatriotic. Because all along, at no point did we get the impression that the commission was not working in concert. Because even Chebukati was the one who was least on the floor. These others are the ones who are most with us when we were at Bomas, day and night. So in my opinion, I don't understand how this is a situation that is Chebukati's fault. I think the fault lies with the 4 commissioners who just decided to cry wolf, and we're looking around and you're wondering, where is the wolf?
Franklin.
Yep, I think 2 things.
Yeah.
One, we are not in a science congress contest where the process than the answer matters. This is an election process, and perceptions are key. And I think that informs my below-average score of 45% to Chebukati's team. And 2 other things is the struggles around Chebukati and team's ability to collaborate within the commission and with other electoral institutions has again come out. Stakeholders struggled with this at the beginning. The ability of the commission to not just strategically but proactively communicate and carry along Kenyans in terms of preparations again has come out glaring. And this split in the commission is not something decent. But the most important thing is now we will see whether the 4 commissioners are right or Chebukati and the other 2 commissioners are right when the facts are adduced before the Supreme Court. And I think it's only decent. So right now, we allow Raila and team the 7 days to file a petition, have the Chief Justice and team look at the facts, give us, the decision within 14 days after the petition has been filed. In the meantime, we have 290 elected members of National Assembly, 47 women rep, 47 governors, 47 senators. A majority of them, the competitors have already, conceded.
Yeah.
We need to begin working on this. We have a good parliament that the numbers are looking good. We do not know the caliber yet, whether it is going the way Interior CS Matiang'i warned us. But I hope that Kenyans elected some decent people. And the numbers are good because then with a difference of about 2 seats, the debate will be very vibrant. The issues have to be put on the floor, and there must be lobbying, there must be bipartisanship to be built around issues. We have critical issues of reviving the economy. We have the challenges around education. We have challenges around high cost of living. We have challenges about unemployment. We have challenges about drought and starvation. These are the priorities we need now. Let the other electoral institutions take charge, and then we can say we're moving this country forward.
Yeah. Prof, don't you find it strange that the dissenting commissioners did not have their own tally? Because they were there announcing from the constituencies. Why would it be so difficult for someone to say, Chebukati said 7.1, 6.9, we say, based on our tally, that it is this and that? Considering this portal is also open to the public. All the Form 34As are there, and the Supreme Court ruling was that it needs to be free and verifiable.
Now, first things first. I think it is not true that Chebukati, as a chairman or returning officer, can act unilaterally. It's not true. I don't even care what people are peddling around the text of the Maina Kiai. They are tweaking it here and there. But just a fact of the law that elections are held at polling stations, presidential elections, and not at bomas. It is also equally true, it is the work of IBC, not Chebukati, to do the work that will finally produce the results which the returning officer will announce. Let me clarify to Kenyans. The reason why we have one individual is to avoid a situation such as we would have gotten ourselves in on that day. You know that situation on Monday? What was it going to be? The vice chair could have announced their winner, and Chebukati their winner. It has happened in other countries. You guys, you must know of examples. So we are avoiding that situation by having only one person announcing. Just like we have only one person swearing in the president, the chief justice, if he's there. Because if you leave it open like it was in the past, somebody could swear in another person. So that's the role of the returning officer or chairman. It is not to act unilaterally. The results he's announcing are results of IEBC, not his. Now to answer your question. The process of verifying is not the process of doing the tallying, okay? You are verifying. Now you must ask yourself, what does it mean to verify? Just to sit there like a log and pass Form 34As, that is verifying. Verifying means there is a possibility you could identify issues, okay? There is a possibility agents who are there can also identify issues. They have been told, don't bring noise. If you see something wrong, like wrong tally, wrong addition, whatever it is, crossed numbers, note them down. What does that mean? According to me, it means those issues noticed and raised by both sides, IBC and the agents, and the two agents, whatever 4 or 2, whatever number the candidates are issues that will be resolved not on that verification table, Trevor, unasikia, but at some later point. If I get these 4 commissioners right, they are saying by the time they get to the point where those issues raised by agents and maybe even by themselves or by all people present, Chebukati then becomes scarce. He refuses to make himself available for them to address the issue that had been raised during the verification. Because you do not sort out the issues during verification, you note them down, the errors, you note them down. So that at some point you can now isolate them and say, this set of errors or issues, the commission can address. But this set of errors can only be addressed by the Supreme Court. If you are aggrieved because of these things you noted. We as IBC have no power to pronounce ourselves on this. You can go to the Supreme Court. But on this issue of addition, or this and this, we as a commission are making this decision. Again, a party aggrieved with the decision of IBC is free to go to the Supreme Court. You get it? So the commissioners are saying they never go to that point of addressing those issues. And that is a very valid argument. Supposing it turns out in the Supreme Court that indeed there were issues which Chebukati was cutting around. And just to correct my friend here, we still had one more day. There was no hurry. That hurry, however sincere and well-meaning you are, but that hurry, it is hurry because something has happened. And critical stakeholding is not happy with what you want to announce, including a majority of your own commissioners. You have to stop. In fact, I dare argue, even if there was a deadline, assuming that was now Tuesday, a better option would be go to the courts and seek an extension. That, to me, would be a better option than announce something which can now be annulled by the Supreme Court without a petition. Because somebody can move to court to have that degazetted. Now, if you degazette it, for example, where are we taking ourselves as a country? Those are sort of things, the ingredients for trouble, which we must at all times avoid. So I would have appealed for caution. There was still time. Meet your commissioners. Make it meeting as transparent as possible. And if you can see they are up to certain monkey business, there must be an end to that.
Joy, the only legal redress is the Supreme Court, right? There's no other ways of going around this. But what kind of evidence threshold will you need? Because there can only be two outcomes, either nullify or uphold.
Now, I'll come to your question just a bit, but I have to speak as the lawyer on this table, a practitioner of 22 years standing, so I know what I'm talking about. Read the Elections Act, Section 39. It says the chairperson shall declare the result. It is not a may, it's not a maybe, it's not a consultative position. The commission does the election. The commission verifies the results. The chairman makes the declaration. It is unequivocal, it is clear, it's in black and white. That is the law. The Constitution, Article 138, again, in the duties of the chairperson, it says the chairman shall make the declaration that communicates to Kenyans what their decision is regarding the election. Once an election declaration has been made by returning officer, whether it's an MCA decision, whether it's a decision for a president, once the returning officer has pronounced himself on what the decision is, there's no degazettement. The only recourse, now to your question, is a petition. It becomes an election petition from that moment on. But the law did not envision a situation where the commissioners are dissenting. The thing is this, there's nowhere for the commissioners to agree because the Kenyans are the ones who make the decision on what shall be announced. It's not a consensus decision. It's not that they can sit and say, so which number do you like? Do you like this number? Do you like that number? No. All they can do is say, okay, once we have done the tally, we have done the verification, what is it at the bottom? This is the number. Okay, go ahead and announce. And that's why I was saying earlier, if the commissioners had come out and said, when we tallied, we came up with 13, and now a chairman has announced 17, we don't know where he got that from, as it was in the time of Kivuitu. He said, look, I don't even know who won this election, because people were running parallel tallies to his, and he got to a place where he honestly had no idea what he was supposed to declare. Now, Chebukati in this instance, from the very time the commission made the decision to put up the Form 34As up on the website, up on the portal, those numbers were there for any Kenyan with the patience and the temerity to sit down and work out the tally to be able to deliver the result, to be able to arrive at the result even before he made the decision or he made the declaration. So for him to behave as if Chebukati was communicating his personal decision is misleading Kenyans. Chebukati was telling us what we had told him to tell us. It is we who communicated those results. It is not Chebukati who came up with them. And it is his sworn duty to uphold the Constitution and the law. And he did what was right. Now, if there was a discrepancy, like I said, the correct recourse is to take it to the Supreme Court. Once it goes to the Supreme Court, the veracity of what he has done will be tested, as against the veracity of what the entire commission did up to the point where he made the declaration. Because, as correctly pointed out, it is a process, it's not an event. His declaration came at the tail end of the entire process. So when the Supreme Court looks at this, they won't just look at the result. They look at how was the result arrived at. So, for example, the process of verification. How was it verified? How did he arrive at the decision that this has been looked at? Now, this took 6 days because what happened was this. The law saying that the results must be verified, how the IBC interpreted it is that every single Form 34A must undergo scrutiny. And so they set up these little committees. I think the Kenyans saw it on Bomas.
Yeah, the Bomas of Kenya.
Where 2 IBC officials would sit with 2 agents from each of the 4 political parties that had a presidential candidate, and observers would be milling around. And what they would do is they would scrutinize each and every Form 34A that was presented. These Form 34As did not come by courier like they went to the counties. They were personally brought by the returning officer who sat there in case there were any questions regarding any of the forms that he had presented to them. It was only after each and every one of them had been looked at by everybody around that table, and the agent signing that, yes, what we have seen for this particular Form 34 is correct. That is when they were counted as verified, and that's when they made it the Form 34B. Part of Chebukati's responsibility as chair is to generate the Form 34C. And I've seen in today's newspapers, the findings in this Form 34C have been gotten down from the portal and put in the newspaper. So this information all along was available for all Kenyans, which means the transparency issue was being dealt with, that all along you could see what was the commission working with. And so in this particular situation, my interpretation can only be somebody is trying to precipitate a crisis. The only way for this crisis to be averted, Kenyans have said, is we want to go back to work, take it to court. And so once it goes to court, the process will be looked at, from the procurements to everything to the time when the announcement was made. But where we stand right now, as far as I'm concerned, unless the court says otherwise, we had an election, we have an outcome.
Okay.
And as Kenyans, that's what you asked us a question, we gave you an answer. Now politicians deal with the rest. Not our monkey, not our circus. We have children to feed, we have candidates to prepare. We have a school term that has been shortened by two weeks. We need to get back to normal.
So you think all this is just politics. But Franklin, what does it do in terms of the integrity of the polls when there's a team of 4 commissioners who are dissenting? Yeah. In as much as Joy is clearly stipulating that they don't have, there's no mandate of them to agree, but what does it do to the integrity of the polls?
I think we have to broaden the conversation. And if we look at it in strict terms of the IEBC, then we miss the point. The challenge with the IEBC is not the lack of talent. The challenge with the IEBC is not the issue of capacity. They have very good staff. There are so many Kenyans qualified to chair IEBC and be commissioners. So that's not the point. The challenge is in the interests that want to manipulate the process behind the curtains. And as Kenyans, we must be very clear that there is need to work out on how do we bolster democratic institutions and performance. How do we heighten political accountability? How do we enhance civic engagement on these issues so that the powers that be that want to interfere with such processes for selfish interest and other selfish gains are deterred? For instance, other than the Political Parties Act that was amended broadly, all the other electoral legislations were stalled in Parliament. And no one is pointing a finger at this point at the performance of my good friend and former boss, J.B. Muturi, and the longest-serving majority leader, Aden Duale, and the role of the executive in stalling those bills and the responsibility of the various committees to do this. And without a proper legal framework to anchor this process, then you're likely to head into the headwinds. The allocation of budget to IEBC, it was frustrated for a very long time. The composition of the IEBC, the appointment of the executives, all these are issues. The cost of our elections is so high, and we know that it's actually a budget made for corruption, to benefit corrupt individuals involved in public procurement, and not really the actual cost of our elections. So if we don't look at this broadly and just look at the seismics that are happening, the volcanoes that are happening in the IEBC, then we miss the point. In terms of holding the team together, being in a leadership position, it's really the responsibility of the leader to make sure that the team is glued together. And that is a personal issue with the Chebukati. We're not seeing it for the first time. We saw it soon after the court nullified the 2017 elections. We saw commissioners reading from different scripts, Rosalina Kombe disappearing. We saw their long-standing feud with the former CEO, who left, and this seems to be the shortcomings of the chair, the person of the chairperson, and nothing to do with his leadership capabilities. It boils down to that, his inability to consult and pull along his teammates, and not being so quick to move along. I think that is an issue. The capability of Chebukati to command, authority and be able to communicate proactively and strategically and transmit this public confidence from himself to the public are things that are missing. And we can look at those things and say, how was the recruitment done? And again, if you go back to the history, you will hear about the issues of the appointment. There seems to still have strings pulled behind the back from appointment to the current performance that we are seeing. So we have to look at the things more broadly than just zooming in on the fallout between the commissioners. That we will be told by the Supreme Court, who has the facts and who made the right decision. In terms of holding the team together, Chebukati has failed us. In terms of pulling off a proper election organized in a good way, I think Parliament failed us, the executive failed us, and the security agencies have tried to make sure that the country is peaceful. The other commissions have tried to work in a good way to support the process. But we must really broaden the conversation and say, look, going forward, we had an elections operation plan. We have the elections that has been done. We will have the Supreme Court speak to this. We will have to audit the process. What will be the recommendations? What will be the exact actions required of the electoral institutions going forward? Including the political parties. Yes, we have a good number of women. The numbers have increased significantly, but we need to see further the two-third gender rule. How do we again not go into 2027 without having this implemented? How do we, one of the key critical issues that played out in this election is money. How do we regulate campaign financing? That is something that has been stalled on by Parliament. So this is a more broad collective issue that we have to look at than just zooming in on the fallout. Because the fallout is a small issue, not a small issue. It's a leadership issue that we have seen as a weakness in the current chair of the Commission. All right.
Let's take a quick break here. When we come back, Kenya's Choice 2022 continues right here on Citizen TV. I see some of your views coming through. We'll see if we can post some of them at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. We'll see a lot. We'll talk about that in just a bit.